Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast. My name is Tracy Austin, and I'm the Chief Talent Officer here at Elevated Talent Consulting. And we are thrilled that you are listening in with us today. And if you are someone that listens every week, I just want to thank you so much for joining us and for sharing our podcast with your network of colleagues and friends. And for those of you that are brand new, thank you so much for joining us this week. And if you haven't yet had a chance, please be sure to click on that little plus button and subscribe and give us all the stars. We love all the stars. So with that being said, we are talking today about culture, and we're talking about how we really take the values of our organization and really embed those into everything we do so that it becomes conscious in the thoughts and actions with ourselves and our teams. And with that, we have a fantastic guest with us. So Marika Messenger is a conscious leader, visionary, teacher, researcher in consciousness, really working to elevate individuals and organizations to create purposeful impact. So Marika, welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're thrilled to have you. So, I want to chat about two things. And, as we start our conversation, you talk a lot about consciousness. And I think consciousness is one of those words is a little bit woo. And we're like, what is that? But when we boil it down specifically into values and how our values impact our beliefs and our actions, how do those things come together?
Well, consciousness is a technology of alignment. So it supports us to create alignment within ourselves and within our relationships, within our work environment, within the company we work for the company, the vision and the mission of the company we work for. So through that process of alignment, we use some tools, and values is clearly one of them. Truth is another one, honesty. And through the embodiment of these values at the individual level, at the organizational level, we create positive, progressive, authentic cultures, which do derive into better performance and positive impact.
Okay. And so, I heard you use the word embody. And what does it look like for a leader to embody something? What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it means we are our actions, right? So if our actions do reflect our core values, then we are going to be in alignment with our core values. But if we say or believe we are, aligned with certain core values, and then our actions actually are conflicted with those core values, then we are not embodying our core values.
Okay. And so when we look at how we align and really look at performance inside of organizations and that alignment between our own core values and the values of an organization, I guess, how does that align, and what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, first, misalignment is a root cause of suffering. So if I am not aligned with the vision of my company, or if I am not aligned with the values of my boss, I am not going to be able to thrive individually in what I do. And of course, if I don't thrive, I'm not going to be engaged. I'm not going to be as driven to support the vision of the organization. I'm not going to be as motivated to respect the deadline that my boss has given to me. And so that misalignment is going to create some friction that we know is the cost of performance, right? So there is a data that I found fascinating each time I see it, is the cost of hiding. the cost of hiding is, and that was like a survey with loads of, C-level executives within an organization. And for them, the cost of hiding is 15%, 1/5 of revenue. And it's like 6 to 7% within the P&L, right? So it's kind of a hidden cost. And if we dare to look at it and address it, we have some untapped potential when it comes to revenue, performance, profit, everything.
Okay, so when we look at hiding, what exactly does that look like?
Well, in organizations, in the world in general, hiding is everywhere. We wear a mask a lot of times. So in an organization, in a work environment, hiding means not owning your mistakes, not taking responsibility, finding excuses, right? Saying things in a way that can be sometimes manipulative. In order to avoid being exposed. There is another element of that, which is people who are hiding from themselves, and therefore they are hiding. They are not able to have a presence. They're not able to have charisma. They're not able to convey their ideas in the best way possible because there is a hiding within them. So it can manifest really in many, many ways. But it's interesting to look at the interpersonal consequence of hiding, and that really is a lack of smoothness in the execution process.
Okay. And so when we specifically kind of look at this from an organizational perspective, since so many of our listeners are either small business owners or human resources, and we're saying, hey, where's the alignment between personal values and organizational values and how those things are aligned? And of course, that shows up in many different ways, such as, not owning mistakes, not being transparent with what we're doing, especially in this remote work environment. What are some of those, kind of keys that leaders can dig into to really ask some questions to pull individuals out of that hiding?
Yeah. Well, if we want to pull anyone out of hiding, we have to be a truth seeker. So what does it mean to be a truth seeker? It means to dare to look for the intentions of people, ask questions, and create, more than anything, I would say, it's create an environment where it's safe to own mistakes. It is safe to take responsibility. So there is that element of creating, psychological safety and a culture of trust. But it needs to be balanced as well with measuring performance and having those difficult conversations when we need to, right? So it's a fine balance, because sometimes when, the environment is too safe, people don't expect to be questioned on their performance. And therefore, that can create other issues. And if the environment is not safe enough, people are going to be afraid to own their mistakes. So it's working on those two levels, right? The first level is creating that culture, that space that, feels safe. So we want to work on trust. We want to work on, being very clear on who we are as a leader, as an organization, what's the vision, what's the mission, but also like what are our core values and how do we show that we embody them, right? So if as a leader, my core values are excellence, integrity, whatever, care, right? How am I going to show that every day? But also at the organizational level, how is this, how are those values distributed or radiating within the practices of the organizations, within the way, people are cared for? So that's one element. And then the other element is to really, with each person that we work with or that we hire, do that digging into, what are their core values and do they embody them? And can we create alignment or not, right? So when we see that there is a lack of alignment, we observe, right? We make notes of what is not aligned. And we can, as a leader, as a business owner, as an HR person, reflect on how can I recreate alignment? And the alignment might look different, but, can we be in that place of curiosity where we can find alignment with who you are, what you want, who we are, what we want? And those conversations can be evolutionary. if people are conscious, the more conscious the people are, the more we actually can find a way to recreate alignment or are okay with not finding alignment. The more people are unconscious, the more those conversations are going to be reactive, defensive. Eventually, there will be a loss of emotional mastery, you won't be authentic. There won't be truth. People will be hiding. So those conversations are a bit pointless because they are not going anywhere if people are not able to show up with who they are and what they want and share that with openness and honesty.
Okay. And so what I'm kind of hearing you say in between the lines here is that there's a way to amplify potential and there's a way to essentially hinder that potential to turn into the realization of how great a person can be. So, and I think that this probably goes back a little bit to hiding, and our staff are hiding or unconscious, or leaders are hiding or unconscious within that. So how do we identify where we have some untapped potential? And then so one, how do we identify it? Then the second question is, what is like one or two simple steps that our leaders listening in can take to untap that potential?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one way to see where we have some untapped potential is to start to reflect on what is not working, right? So I would say everyone, but it requires a certain level of consciousness to see that as well. Has probably one or two or many ways of doing things that are quite repetitive in their lives, and those ways might not be serving them, right? Can you find yourself repeating a cycle, repeating a pattern within different situations in your life? And that can be professional, personal, social, all of that. We want to look at everything and can I see myself behaving constantly in the same way and not really, getting where I want to get to with that way of being? And that's a place to start looking, right? Because that's the place where we want to be curious, and rather than judge ourselves and hide and avoid looking at that, or just pretending we're perfect and it's not because of us. Can we be curious and can we explore, is there a better way? Right? Is there a greater way? Is there a good way? Is there a right way? But just be curious about all of that, which allows us to tap into our creative power and be like, okay, I've been doing this all the time this way, and each time this is the result that I've had. What can I change? What can I do differently? Right? Mm-hmm. And try. As I said, we are our actions, right? So transformation is only real when it's actually embodied, when it's like it happens in the physical reality. Right? Because I'm doing things differently. Right. I always say, an apology is a change of behavior. It's not words, right? So can I start to do things differently and see myself being a different person as I do those things differently, and see how I feel about those things, about me being different, and what am I able to achieve by actually taking another approach to a situation. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we struggle, we can be like, oh my God, I'm doing this all the time. Why? Where is it coming from? And that's another process of, exploration within the self, right? Have I seen that behavior many times in my life because my parents had that way to relate to one another, and therefore I received that program and I took that program on thinking that was the way to do things, but actually there is another way. And this is when we start to choose who we want to be rather than who we have been programmed to be.
Right. And from that culture perspective, specifically within a work environment, we're also setting a parameter for what is acceptable behavior and what's not acceptable behavior at work, and what behaviors, again, which are actions that come out of that are what those are how we create our culture as well. So when we specifically look at, the culture of the organization, those core values, how do we attract and retain employees specifically with that?
Yeah. We have to be real in that, right? Because especially these days and more, there is a lot of talks about vision and mission and sustainability and impact, right? But again, it's like, okay, these are words. How does this manifest within your organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, how do you treat your employees? How do you treat your shareholders if you have some? How do you treat stakeholders, really, right? What is the code of conduct? What happens? What do you have in place for your employee to be taken care of? So all these questions really are the place to start, because we can have values like, okay, care is a value that we see a lot, right? How does care look like within your organization? And then, if you're very upfront that those are your values and that they are embodied, you're going to attract people that want those values within an organization. And that is going to create alignment between you and, the organization and the employee. And that is a recipe for success. So that's how we attract, and that's how we retain, right? It's really the basis of retention and attraction, is to be able to show the employee or the future employee that they are aligned with us, with how we do things, where we're going, and that we are focused on that alignment. We want that alignment to stay, because it's really what creates the relationship of the employee within the organization.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So as we start to close this out, we love to give just what's one kind of thing from our conversation that our executives can really take and implement into their organization.
Yeah. Well, since we've been talking about values, I invite you to do a value exercise, right? And I think for you first, right, as a business owner, as an HR director, what are your values as an individual? What do they mean for you, if you can define them? And what is your alignment with them? Let's say between 1 and 5, if my core value is peace, for instance, between 1 and 5, where am I, right? How is peace embodied in my life, in the way I show up and all of that? So if I'm 4, good. If I'm 2, if I'm 3, the question is, how do I level up? How do I bring that 3 to a 4? What needs to happen in myself, in my life? What do I need to change in my life or realign so that there is more of that embodiment, right? So start at the individual level. Then at the organizational level, same question, right? What are our values? What are the values of the organization? Are they completely in alignment with the owner and the C executives? And assess them. And again, if I say that the value of my organization is excellent, but I'm 2 out of 5 here, what do I need to do? Right. And then through that process, invite employees to do the same. So that could be through individual conversations, that could be through, a workshop, an offsite, whatever you want to decide. But that's an invitation for everyone to think about that and to work together to actually create that alignment individually and at the organizational level with the core values.
Great, thank you. And what's a takeaway that you have for HR professionals? I know you just talked about the values exercise, but is there anything that HR has specific hands in that can really help to support this?
Yeah, and here I want to touch upon in DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we haven't really talked about that yet. But again, that's an amazing thing, right? There is immense power to unlock with DEI, but we have to be very careful in how we do it, right? And for me, diversity is nothing, right? Equity, we're starting some maybe, right? But inclusion is the diamond, right? It's basically creative and inclusive culture where people can show up authentically, where there is a safe space, and where they can, be their authentic selves and therefore bring their uniqueness to the table. This is what we need to work on, right? So it's a bit of an alarm bell in a way that, it's not about bringing diverse people within an organization. If there is not an inclusive culture, it's actually very dangerous. So it's an invitation to really look at DEI through the lens of inclusion and what do we need to do to really have an inclusive culture. And that links really nicely with the core values, right? Because again, if the core values are clearly defined and embodied, and that authenticity or collaboration or openness is one of them, you're going to derive some practices that are linked to that, and you're going to question yourself in places where you are not fully aligned with that value.
Right. Great. Thank you so much, Marika, and thank you for being with us today. And I know that you have some resources that we will have available in our show notes, along with how to find you on LinkedIn and how to find your organization. So all of those will be in the show notes. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us again this week. And, want to invite you to follow Marika, follow the programs that she has available. And of course, we have our Inspire program starting the beginning of September, where we really focus on HR professionals creating that environment to engage their staff and how to do that through every stage of that life cycle of the employee. So with that, we hope that you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.